The design and feel of a lot of specials in this series is a topic I've talked about quite a bit. It's very interesting in a bunch of different ways, but there's been one special recently in the game that's been different than any special we've had in the series in the past in terms of how I see it. I've said before that I think Big Bubbler is a pretty well designed special that can teach a lot of great support habits, and given it a lot of praise in the past. And today I want to talk about it, not just in the positives it has, but also why despite those things, it might have a big problem. This is why Big Bubbler doesn't actually work. Let's get started. When the game came out, there was definitely some brief usage of Junior in tournaments, but since then, the opinion of the special has dropped, going from one of the better ones, to mediocre, to bad, to now today being seen as one of the worst specials in the game, even after it got some buffs. There's definitely been plenty of specials in the Splatoon series where people's initial impressions of them were off compared to what they were before, but I don't think anything has been as drastic as the quick downfall of Big Bubbler. And what I think makes it even more interesting is the special was only buffed, and that only recently. The entire time this special was dropped off in public opinion, it got no changes. So what did we learn? While the special initially seemed to be a great way to solidify your position without taking up your weapon, giving you the ability to stand in locations you couldn't normally, it mainly became a problem because, well, it just wasn't that hard to shred. Most specials in the game could not only counter it while having other effects. Inkstorm breaks it while painting around the map, missiles pre-patch damaged it well while also displacing other teammates, specials like Kraken and Ultra Stamp can break through it with only a portion of its duration, and that isn't even getting into stuff like Crab or Tri-Strike or Booyah Bomb. On top of that though, even if you're not against other specials, because it's tied to your position, it's very difficult to actually use as an entry tool, something that's become clearly more important the more we get better at this game. If all of that weren't bad enough, it also became clear that with coordination and enough people in the right position, even without specials, it's just honestly not that hard to shred it. At the end of the day, on most weapons with few exceptions like Roller's Curling Bomb to help it be positioned more aggressively, even weaker specials like Reef Slider end up providing more utility in terms of getting your team in and having an impact on other specials. Now on the surface, this is nothing remarkable. I mean, there's plenty of specials in weaker spots in the past, and I just talked about Reef Slider plenty in other videos before, so what makes this different? Well, it's the fact that I don't think they're gonna be able to fix this one. Let me give a comparison for this, and this is gonna be one of the few times I compliment Missiles. When trying to change the special, if the devs really did want to rework it to make it healthier, there's so many different ways and ideas they could do it. Back when the discussion was more popular, people in the community had many different ways or solutions of tweaking Missiles, and honestly, it's hard to tell what could have been the best way to change them. In my video talking about them being a problem such a long time ago, I came up with many different ideas in order to try to nerf or rework the special to be more healthy, and honestly, there were a lot of ways you could tweak it. That's kind of one of the positives of the special. It has a lot of knobs you can tweak, so when balancing it, there's a lot of tools the devs have at their disposal in order to fix any problems it might have, and Bubble is the opposite. I mean, look at this special. Its HP and duration are both extreme, with 2400 health and 15 seconds of duration, and on top of that, these two attributes are tied to each other. And it gets even worse because outside of those two factors, the only other major thing to adjust would be where you place it. But guess what? Where you place it being exactly where you are is integral to the special's design. Rewarding players for having proper positioning as well as requiring them to get in the position first before deploying the shield are important for teaching good habits and counterplay from opponents. Something like Tacticooler got a further drink grabbing range and throwing range because it isn't as integral and it still keeps it as a factor, but Bubble being tied to exactly where you're standing is very important to making it function, and with that, 3 of the most important knobs you can tweak are incredibly difficult to adjust. I mean, seriously, adjusting the HP and duration, do you know how extreme it could be with this thing having more than 2400 health? Imagine approaching it as a solo queue player and how difficult it could be, let alone if it could tank specials like Crab Tank for absurd amounts of time. Yeah, it could definitely make it good, but also is it going to be fun to fight at all? No, in fact, it'll probably be one of the worst things to play against in the game. It'll also push its coordination requirements so far into the extremes that, especially for solo queue, it would feel particularly miserable. Even the devs trying with the buffs they did recently is kinda risky. We're lucky that the main special they made really bad into Bubble now is Missiles, something not great for the game anyway, but what if they decide to make it tank a billion inkjet shots? It could honestly have more negative impacts than anything else. It's a shame too, when Bubble was seen, it clearly did have potential for positive effects. On top of helping positioning for weapons like Junior, in early area cups we also saw more aggressive comps like Double Dually being played alongside it, since the beacon for more aggressive jumps and position taking making is honestly really useful for stuff like that, and it's kind of a shame that that stuff immediately fell off. When looking back at things, however, I think it's pretty clear what happened with this special. It just was built for different maps. Take a look at Old Eeltail where Bubble was seen originally, and just, I mean, the amount of open sides and inkable walls and wide terrain makes this a completely different beast. Like I've stated earlier, Bubbler is harder to deal with as an individual player. When people are more spread out and you can't dump as many resources into it, as well as it being great to enable flanking options, that's where Bubbler could really thrive. If there were a map like Splatoon 2 Reef in the game, or even some maps in the game like Clamblitz Museum specifically that have a lot of routes, Bubbler honestly feels way better on stuff like that. Not perfect by any means, but for weapons like the Zinc Mini Splatling or H3 Nozzle Nose, it's very clear that it gets much more utility out of the special this way. Unfortunately though, most maps just don't have the options to use routes like these. You need to get in to be able to place the bubble in the first place. You don't have options to get around and behind people and use it in key off angles. Bubbler was just built for different maps than we got at the end of the day, and unless we get lucky with a few maps in which it'll only be good in those, it's gonna be clear that this is no way for the special to get better. The only thing the devs can do at this point is just try to adjust some specific multipliers and hopefully hit a balance to where the special's good but not too annoying solo-wise, isn't too broken competitive, and still feels like it has uses, which is gonna be pretty difficult. Still though, at this point they gotta try. I mean, there's weapons like Roller where its main kit is absolutely integral at relying on Bubble, and thankfully due to tools like Curling Bomb doesn't feel that bad on that weapon in particular. Unfortunately though, for most of the Bubble weapons, even ones with kits that I really like Zinc Minis, it's gonna be hard to see them being good on these kind of stages. Hey though, if there's one silver lining, at least it's way better than the specials it was replacing. Chainable HP specials really had a lot of problems, from making classes like Blasters and Chargers feel absolutely miserable if not unviable to use for some of the weaker counterparts, to promoting passive or just unfair fights in team play. Honestly, Bubble doesn't really have as much problems as those. There's a lot of specials in this game, and it's kinda easy to forget Bubbler's in it or to see it and just see it as one of the weaker specials. I think with time it might end up in a decent enough spot to where it'll be fine, and while it sucks it won't reach its maximum potential, at the very least it's not something actively harming the game like the previous predecessors. Bubbler was Nintendo's first time at reworking a chainable HP special into something a bit different, and the core concept still has a lot of merits, so I think it was a valiant attempt, and honestly it fails due to factors outside of the special's control like the maps. Big Bubbler really is strange, and I respect the effort. Hopefully one day some miracle of balance or map reworks allows it to thrive a bit more, but at the very least, we don't have to deal with chainable HP. So, I guess that's a nice silver lining. But hey, this was a weird topic. Let me know what you guys think about Big Bubbler below. Do you like it in this game, and what changes do you want to see? Let me know, and I'll see you guys next time.